Good afternoon, everybody. This is a very weird time to studying music, but it gives us a lot of opportunities. So when I haven't been teaching, I've been able to use a lot of my time to practice and study and learn as much as I can. And I hope that you guys are able to do the same thing and are eager to do the same thing. So tonight and the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about music theory. So for a lot of you guys, I've had in a music theory class of some sort before. And we always start with the question, what is music theory? Well, let's take a moment and think about that for just a second before we get into some of the details. What is music theory and why do we need to study music theory? Well, music theory, as you can guess, tells us how music works. And it allows us, as we'll see, to also know what it ought to sound like. So when we are playing music like this piece that I've got here, or like any of the songs or band or orchestra pieces that you look at, we've got notes on the page, and it's our job as musicians to figure out what it's supposed to sound like. And we need to know a lot about music theory and reading music in order to do that. If you guys have some paper nearby, go ahead and pick it up, get a pencil so you guys can take some notes, because this class is a little bit different than the others in that we are going to be doing it for about 7 weeks. So we'll need to build on some of the things that we talk about. That being said, it might start off seeming pretty easy, but I guarantee you, you guys will be learning stuff that you haven't learned before or thinking about things in a different way. So why is it important to study? We have to figure out what these printed notes, the black on the white pieces of paper, how to turn that into sound. So 3 things that we'll talk about, 3 different categories are rhythm. As you guys can see, rhythm. Rhythm tells us when to play the note. We know about quarter notes and half notes and whole notes. That tells us how long or how short it needs to be. Rhythm tells us when to play the note. Melody talks about the tune. Whoops. So like Mary Had a Little Lamb, the tune, what we know, what we sing along to, is the melody. And last, you guys might already be thinking about this. Is harmony. Harmony is when 2 or more notes are played together. So with melody, we've got 1 note going. Harmony, we've got more than 1 note. Gives us chords. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on today too. All right, so before we can go on, we need to start with the very basics that we sometimes take for granted. We don't realize that they're important, and we don't think about them as much as we should. But the first thing, and you guys can write this on your notes, if you don't have manuscript paper, you guys can go ahead and take a moment to draw the 5 lines of the staff on your pieces of paper. So these 5 lines, first thing we need to know, we call this the staff. S-T-A-F-F, the staff. The staff gives us a place to put the notes. Without this, there's no possibility of learning anything about music. The staff is very important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, numbering from the bottom to the top. So the first line is the bottom line. So on the staff, we've got 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We also have spaces going from the bottom to the top. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've got 4 spaces. Lines and spaces, you guys know, probably have heard about that a little bit, but we have to cover it to make sure that we're all on the same page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. And this, as we know, is called the staff. Some other things, just to get some I'll leave that out for you guys. Just so we have the right words to work with, we all have the vocabulary starting out. Lines and spaces. One, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. Let's take a second, make sure you guys have that copied down, have this all digested. You should know this, or have a little bit of familiarity with this. Now, take this off for now. So we've got the staff, which is these 5 lines. Now the first thing that you'll probably notice when you look at a staff of music is that it has a clef, which can either be one of 2 things. It can be a treble clef, which looks like this. Call that a treble clef. Or we have the bass clef. These clefs give us an idea of what notes are on the staff. They give us hints to the notes. So another name for treble clef, we call that a G clef. Because this dot right here tells you the line G. The second line on the staff is G with treble clef. Bass clef, this note here is F. We call this the F clef. Now we'll come back to bass clef later on, so we'll get rid of that for now. So let's focus on treble clef. Treble clef is called the G clef. Treble. Notes that are written on the treble clef are usually, they're always much higher notes, higher pitches than the bass clef. So notes on the bass clef sound like this. Notes on the treble clef go up, higher notes. All the way up there. Think about some notes that play the treble clef. Do tubas play the treble clef? No. Do trombones play the treble clef? No. Does the flute play the treble clef? Yes, it does. The flute is a high instrument. The violin is a high instrument. The trumpet plays from the treble clef. So instruments that play the treble clef include flute, trumpet. If you guys have any other ideas, you can always put that into the chat. Flute, trumpet, clarinet. These are all instruments that play from the treble clef. Mm-hmm. Good. So this is all about the treble clef today. So moving on, we got the treble clef called the G clef. Well, from what I've seen in a lot of theory work, sometimes learning to draw the clefs is one of the trickiest things for a young musician. So let me just give you my take on how to do this in just a couple of steps. All right, so you have to make sure that you always start on the second line. If it's not on the second line, it's not correct. It's not in the right place. So we start on the second line, put a dot there. That's step 1. Step 2, we do a little curly semicircle. can end about right there. That's step 2. Step 3, let's do another loop up. All right, we're almost there. Just need one line to go straight down and finish it off with a little tail. That's how you make a beautiful, beautiful treble clef. So once again, start on the second line, loop under, loop over, straight down through the middle, and with a tail on the end. So you guys practice that a couple of times on your own, because it's tricky to get a beautiful treble clef, and it has to really be clear, has to be in the right shape, and most importantly, has to be in the right place going around the second line. So take a minute if you want to practice drawing on your paper a treble clef. Once again, we'll do it together. Start on the second line, down, up and around, and straight back down, finishing with a little tail there.
Awesome. All right, so if you guys are listening in, you can go ahead and start practicing drawing your treble clefs. We've had a lot of people join since I first introduced Mr. Logan, so just to recap, the official title of this class is Beginner Music Theory, How to Read Music. So we're really teaching the basics of music, the building blocks. You know, everybody who reads music needs to know how to draw a treble clef, needs to know all of these things. So thank you to everyone who has joined in the last 10 minutes, and we will be here every Monday. So take it away, Mr. Logan.
All right, so treble clef, the staff, we read this from the bottom to the top. Here's the first line, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So on the staff is where we find all of the notes that we need to know. Going from the bottom to the top, let's do just the lines. Just the lines on treble clef. And we have here, whoops, need letters, not dots. E, G, E, and F. E, G, B, D, and F. It's a funny saying that helps us remember which notes are on which lines, which is, and I think it's true, I think it's a true sentence, every good boy does fine. Every good boy does fine. So we have E, the first line, G, the second line, B, the third line, D, the fourth line, and F on the top line, the fifth line in treble clef. Every good boy does fine. Now these are only lines. Here's the lines. Keep this in mind. If you play an instrument or sing a part that uses treble clef, you guys might already know all of this and not need to review. That's all right. Just hang tight for when we get to bass clef. You guys will definitely need to know bass clef. So the spaces that we have now are easy to remember. Space and treble clef. We remember that space is easy because it rhymes with face. F A C E. So spaces. Remember space equals face. Good. Now you guys might have heard different sayings to remember these. As long as the letters, the note names are in the correct order, any saying or memory device is beautiful. So if you have another one, you can send that in the chat. If there's anything, if there's other phrases that you guys like besides every good boy does fine, let me know. It's always important to know what people are being taught. So I'd like to hear any new ideas if you've got those, so you can put those in the chat. So
in the chat if you have.
or face. So these are the pitches. These are the note names for the notes of treble clef. So take a minute, review this, write it down if you need to. And then we're going to have an exercise figuring out which notes we have where. All right, so this is all going to go away. So if you need these letters, need this as a clue, make sure that you've got it on your own paper. So I'm going to have to erase it now.
All right, and I've typed both acronyms into the chat box. So if you need to access these acronyms again, just check on your chat. It should be right there. And if you have any questions about something that Mr. Logan has gone over that he's erasing from the board, please chime in the chat box or in the Q&A section to ask any questions.
Good. And if you ever want to stop or have any questions or comments about anything, you can always raise your hand or comment in the Q&A or chat section. We'll be happy to have a look at what you guys have to say. All right, so now let's test what we know. All right, so here I do want to start seeing some people in the chat box. Raise your hand, and we can also, we'll have videos, we'll have participants later on. We don't need that right now. You can raise your hand. We'll call on you. If you've got the answer, you can put it in the chat box. All right, so on your staff paper, if you have it, or on your regular paper, you can number out. Give yourself a few blanks, and we're going to name the notes. Name the notes on the board. All right, so I'll start off with an easy one. The first one in the acronym. All right, so there's just 3 to start off with. We'll have more, but because we have the smaller board, we'll just do 3 at a time. All right, number 1. Does anybody have number 1 that they can answer for us? All right, I do not see any hand raises or any answers in the chat.
I don't see any yet, but I'm watching. If anybody, please don't feel shy to put a chat in the chat box, raise a hand. Leslie's hand is raised. Leslie Epspodrick. All right, do you have a question? Can you put a question in the chat box or in the Q&A section? And Eunice raised her hand too. Connor raised his hand too. We've got all these hands up. Let's start with Leslie, and then I'm going to get to Eunice and then Connor. So Leslie first. She's typing.
Let's see, E for number 1. Yes,
Nice,
E is
good.
beautiful. Excellent job.
Awesome. And now we've got Yanissa for number 2. Yanissa?
For number 2. What note do we have for number 2?
She hasn't responded yet. Maybe we'll go, if I don't, let's see. All right, let's go to Connor, and Yanissa can do the next one.
All right.
Connor?
2.
Number 2, Connor?
A is the second one, yes.
Oh, we got Yanissa. Awesome. All right, Connor. All right, Connor said A too. Connor, can you do number 3?
Number 2. Yep. A, good.
Good, Connor.
3.
Connor, can you do number 3 too? Awesome. B.
There we go.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Let's do 3 more, and then we'll move on. So we've got E, A, and B. All right. Good. Take a moment to get your answers for these next 3.
We've got one hand up. Amari. Anybody else who wants to put their hand up? So we've got Amari for number 1, for number 2, and number 3. Feel free to put your hand up. Oh, we have someone for number 2, Yanissa, again. Awesome. And Connor. So that's Amari number 1, Yanissa number 2, Connor number 3. Awesome. So Amari, whenever you're ready, if you can tell us the answer for number 1.
Right, good.
You got it. Yep.
Excellent.
Good job.
Good.
Awesome. Who's next? Yanissa, number 2. Mr. Logan, can you move your... Okay, you got it. Awesome. Thanks. Give Yanissa a minute. And while Yanissa's thinking, Connor, you're going to do number 3 in a minute after Yanissa. And anybody in the chat, if you can't see this, if it's too far away, too small, yep, there's Connor. Can you move it a little closer, Mr. Logan? Yeah, if you have any questions or if you can't see something or anything, please let us know in the chat box. Connor, is that better? You can't see the board. There we go. Oh, you got an answer from Connor.
DC. All right, so let's think about this. We need to remember we're going from the top. This is on the second line, so we go from the bottom to the top. Every good boy does fine. So with the acronym, every good boy does fine. And remember, we call this the G Clef, so that's our second hint. So the answer is not C. Connor, do you have another guess?
Oh, we've got one from Yanissa.
All right, Yanissa, that's correct. Yes.
Oh, Mr. Logan, I think so. Okay, Connor had number 3. I think he just jumped the gun.
Oh, I see.
He's answered number 3. So Connor, you're actually right. Good. And Yanissa, you're right too. Sorry about that, Connor.
All right. There we go.
Good job, guys. All right, and please let us know if you can't see the board, because it's looking better to me now, but at any time. Good job, guys.
All right, good. So this might be this is probably a review for a lot of people on here, the notes in Treble Clef. Let's look for a moment at Bass Clef. We'll probably spend most of our time using Treble Clef here because a lot more people seem to be familiar with Treble Clef, but we do need to know the notes in bass clef. All right, so this is all going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
The bass clef, they're a lot easier to draw than a treble clef. Now, treble clef, we started on the second line from the bottom. On line 2, the opposite is true here. We need to make sure that we start on the second line from the top, line 4. The second line from the top. So if you have manuscript paper, go ahead and find line 4. If you are using blank paper and need to write in your lines, take a minute to do that. And once you do, we'll start at line 4. Step 1 to drawing a treble clef, a bass clef. Step 1, find the second from the top line, line 4. We'll start with our dot right there. Good. It's a lot easier than a treble clef. We'll just come up, around, and that's it. We've got kind of a half circle there. Starting from, make sure the dot's on the second line from the top, and then we'll put 2 dots around that line. So there's really 3 steps to drawing a good treble clef, a good bass clef. So we'll do that again together. Find the line second from the top. Got our dot there. That's step 1. We'll come out, do a half circle around. That's step 2. And finish it off 2 dots, like a colon, right around that second from the top line. Now you might remember this, another name that we call the bass clef. We call that the F clef, because that dot, the second from the top line, tells us the note F. So take a minute, practice a few bass clefs if you like, and then we'll learn the notes for bass clef. So one last time for those practicing, second from the top line, put a dot, it will come down, and then 2 dots surrounding that one at the top there. So for the lines in bass clef, we've got G, B, D, F, and A. G, B, D, F, and A. So there's a couple. The one that I learned, the acronym that I learned was Great Big Dogs. Great Big Dogs Fight Animals. Great Big Dogs Fight Animals, which might be true, but I think might be can be kind of a scary phrase to help us remember that. There's one that's been going around that I kind of like better now, which you might have heard. And I'll put this on the board. Good, whoops, wrong letter. Good. This makes me hungry now. Burritos. Good burritos don't fall apart. Good burritos don't fall apart. GBDFA. So if you guys have another one that another acronym, another sentence to help you remember these that you like, that is not good burritos or great big dogs, go ahead and put that in the chat. I would like to know that. So for the lines in bass clef going from the bottom to the top, good burritos don't fall apart. Good.
We also have good boys do fine always from the chat.
Good.
We got that from 2 people. Yeah, Tayer and Mari.
Good.
Thanks, guys.
Fine always. I like that one also. Good. Very good. So bass clef or F clef See the connection? Bass clef or F clef. The lines are from the bottom to the top, G, B, D, F, and A. Take a second to make sure you've got this written down. It's going to be erased in just a moment. So make sure you've got that, please. All right, now we'll move on to the spaces in bass clef. So for the spaces, we have A, C, E, and G. A, C, E, and G. This is definitely true. Although I'm not a farmer, I know people that are, and they can attest, they agree this is true. All cows eat grass. All cows eat grass. All cows eat grass. Anybody have anything else? You can put in the chat another acronym.
Nothing I can see yet.
Yeah.
But I will tell you if I see some.
All cows eat grass.
Oh, Aiden said all cars eat gas. I like that.
I like that.
All cars eat gas. All cows eat grass.
Right. All cars eat grass. Sorry, all cars eat gas. Good. A, C, E, and G. All right, take a moment, make sure you've got those lines and spaces up, and then we'll quiz ourselves for a few of these notes. Make sure we are cooking with bass clef. All right, we'll do another 2 groups of 3 questions. All right, so one last time before it goes away. All cows eat grass. A, C, E, and G. Those are the spaces for bass clef. All right.
Said, always count every goat. It's very creative. A lot of possibilities. Mm-hmm. That all cars eat grass. All cows eat grass. All cows eat grass. All cars eat gas, etc.
All right. So go ahead and write these down. And your answers to which notes do we have here? All right, when you're ready, we need someone for number 1, number 2, and number 3. You guys can raise your hands.
We've got Julian and Tyre. Let's see. We've got 3. We've got Julian, Tyre, and Unissa. So in order, it was Julian, then Tyre, then Unissa.
All right, so number 1, Julian, what do we have? F. F for number 1. Excellent.
Yep. F. Unissa said that one too.
Awesome job, guys. So that is an easy way to see it. Help us remember why this is called the F clef, right? The dot goes straight on the line, and these 2 dots are around this line. So bass clef, we call that the F clef. All right, number 2, what do we have? Good, Tyre, B. Excellent. Excellent job. We got F, B, number 3.
Who was that? Unissa? Unissa already said number 1, but Unissa, can you do number 3? We got another 10.
E. Excellent.
Yeah, nice. And Unissa just said it too. And
Excellent.
I think Mari answered all of them in the chat. Good job, guys.
Good. So we've got F, B, and E. Let's do 3 more, and then we'll move on for a moment.
Let's see those hands. Gonna come up. All right, our first hand is Mari.
All right, what do we have for number 1?
Awesome. That's it.
Number 1, look.
Oh, wait. I didn't look at it. Sorry.
This one's on a line, on a space. It's on a line. So we got to remember what about the burritos? What kind of burritos? These are.
Oh, we got her corrected answer.
Good. So it's on the line. We've got a G. Excellent job.
Nice. Thank you. All right. We've got Nissa for number 2.
Good. Also G. All cows eat grass. We've got G there. And last one, number 3.
So you can do this one because someone else did number 2.
Number 2 is G. Good. Number 3 is D. Excellent.
Nice.
Big dogs. D for G. Or sorry, the last one is D. Number 3 is D. Very good. Very good. Does anybody have any questions about bass clef or want to go over some more of these? Feel free to answer in the chat or raise your hand. We can spend just a few more moments on bass clef if you guys want.
No one's answering, but maybe we could do like maybe 1 or 2 more.
Yeah, let's do another round just to get a little bit more practice. All right. We'll have 3 more answers here.
We've got a raised hand from Mari already and from Unissa.
Right. So number 1, this first number 1 we have.
Mari, you're up.
Mari, good. A.
Hi.
Big dogs fight animals. And we've got A for number 1. Number 2.
That's you, Unissa. There we go.
Number 2, make sure that we're in bass clef. This would be the right answer for treble clef. We have number 2 here, Unissa.
Remember our acronyms?
Eat grass.
All cows eat grass. All cars eat gas.
All cows eat grass. So we've got all cows. Number 2 will be
An answer from Leslie. They said C. So that's good.
Got some good answers coming in. And
number 3, Eunice, you can do this one if you want to.
good. Number 2, C. And number 3, we've got all cows eat grass. All cows eat grass. We have A.
Good. We've got a couple people here chiming in. 3 is A.
Good.
Leslie. Good.
Very good. So we've learned treble clef and bass clef today. We'll put everything up to review. What was the very first thing that we learned today? We learned about music theory and a little bit of why it's important. We'll just start with that question, a few minutes of each of these classes, why music theory is important. But first we need to learn to read music. So we learned about this thing, these 5 lines. What do we call that? These 5 lines we call the staff. The staff.
We've got a lot of people chiming in saying staff line, staff. And one more thing, we have a question in the Q&A section. Someone said, "Are there any other clefs?" You can answer it later, but just so you know, we've got a question about, are there any clefs other than treble and bass clef?
Good question. So we'll talk about that now. We'll review in a moment the lines and spaces for treble clef, which we call the G clef, and bass clef, which we just learned. But for those of you who are curious, there are a couple more clefs. So we also have one. These are called C clefs. So C clefs look a little bit like this, and whatever line is in the middle right here is going to be middle C. And these clefs can move around a little bit, and they look like this. So this, we call that alto clef when the line is in the middle. We call that an alto clef. You can move this up. We have the tenor clef when it's on the second line here. So this second line would be middle C. This is used by the cello, plays tenor clef sometimes. The bassoon plays tenor clef. The viola plays alto clef. And then we also have, which we don't use very often, if at all, in classical music now, we have soprano clef. And this turns here into middle C. But that's really not used very frequently. So we have other clefs known as the C clefs, but we don't need to know those notes right now. So we learned about, just to finish our review in the last couple of minutes, the lines. In treble clef, we have every good boy does fine. Space equals face in treble clef. F, A, C, and E. And for bass clef, or the F clef, for our lines in bass clef, we have great big dogs fight animals, G, B, D, F, A. And for our spaces, we have all cows eat grass. Good. Any questions? We've got 1 minute left, it looks like. Any questions or comments about what we have talked about today so far?
I don't see any questions yet. Now's your last chance. If anybody has a question, comment, last words, something you want to pass on to Mr. Logan.
So each week we're not only going to talk about the notes in treble clef and bass clef. We'll talk about a little, as much as we can, but we'll go on. We'll talk about sharps and flats and key signatures and time signatures. And we'll also learn about rhythms. All is very important for you guys as you are growing and learning as musicians. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll be able to learn a lot. And if there's stuff that seems simple and basic at first, that's okay. It will get harder. And I hope that it will be challenging and a lot of fun and interesting for you guys. All right. I miss seeing you all in class, and I miss working together in orchestra, but I hope that you're practicing and using your time as best as you can. I look forward to seeing you guys next week.